This is how I'm feeling right now. Well, here we are again. This one is an old topic that's been in the back of my mind for a while. I'm thinking you should tie me up and say, this is the insert adult animation is good again guy. Like literally, I was brainstorming ideas with friends on Discord and half the ideas I came up with were, oh, this show is good again. Isn't that an idea? Hi, it's me, Egg Beater, here to talk about shows I claim to hate, but secretly love. And after my first video performed surprisingly well for a video where I held the mic too close and was on the end of a cold, I thought I'd try to make a better quality video. Emphasis on try, because I make no promises. I probably won't even end up reviewing the video like last time. Well, I did, but I couldn't re-record. Unless I wanted to wait another week to end up releasing it, which is kinda what's happened with this one because I haven't been able to record for a week. I'm still using my phone mic in my closet, so I imagine that it's not going to be much better. Now with the recap out of the way, I realised my next topic will be Family Guy. I mean, I'm kinda hyper-fixated on Family Guy and could talk about it for hours, so I'm gonna run through some of my favourite modern episodes. They're all gonna be from between season 18 and 22. The season count might depend on where you are based because it's different for some reason. Lots of countries have different season counts for seasons, and then other countries use volumes for some reason, and there's just a bunch of episodes that aren't in their right season. Whether these episodes embrace the wacky flanderized characters and actually make it work, or they could feel like a modern classic with a fresh coat of paint. Or sometimes you even get a blend of the two, which is my personal favourite. Family Guy has been putting out banger after banger, although that's like 5 episodes a season. The rest of the seasons are usually just alright or plain boring. Now, I will preface by saying this is going to be mostly Lois episodes, despite her being the worst modern character, well, maybe under Brian. She seems to have the best reception towards her episodes. And remember, this list is just my opinion, so if you don't agree with any episodes I put down, that's completely fine. One last thing before we start, I really wanted to include Adoptation, but the Alpha J show already made a great video about that episode, so check it out. So yeah, you heard me right, mostly Lois episodes, so let's open with the Lois episode. Customer of the Week, Season 19, Episode 15. It's a bit of a controversial one. It really delves into Lois's more psychotic side, something that has been present since Season 4 but has only become more prevalent as the show has gone on. The episode sees Lois waking up and having to deal with her family. She can't afford a vet, so she has to do gross things to Brian that I don't know if I can say on YouTube. Stewie won't keep his clothes on and Chris got his foot stuck in the toilet. This is just a couple examples. Meg and Peter also did things, but I just don't want too many examples. Turns out Lois's escape is going to a coffee shop every day. She seems to be chummy with the employees. Like she knows their allergies and interests, and she always tips. One day, she goes in and notices the Customer of the Week board. She immediately begins to spiral when she notices she's not on it. She keeps telling the family how even though it's just a silly little thing, she really wants it. She starts doing more and more just to get noticed, because she just wants that validation, because she believes she's a good person. Such as spending $250 on one of the employees' paintings. She still doesn't win it. Here she begins to spiral more and more. She tries to trigger one of the employees' allergies in order to save them. Unfortunately, it ends up with them in a car crash. Lois is unable to save her, which ends up with her spiraling more and kidnapping one of the other employees and his roommates because he saw Lois plant the peanuts in the footage. Lois just keeps falling more and more and keeps telling herself that she's a good person. Lois is finishing the dishes when red and blue lights pull up. Joe wheels in and tells Lois it's time to go. Lois says, "I'm a good person, Joe." And honestly, in a line that goes shockingly hard, Joe says, "Sometimes good people do bad things." The episode ends with Lois getting out of prison, going to a new coffee shop and seeing they do a Customer of the Week. She's back at square one. Now, despite the controversy, this episode really thrives. They really show how miserable Lois is in the beginning of the episode. Like, adult animation always shows the wives being the voice of reason and the responsible one. But this full makes Lois's life look depressing as hell. The episode also benefits off of not having a B-plot. The episode is all about Lois. She just wants this one thing, and no one seems to understand her, or they are questioning her morality. The episode is also pretty stacked with jokes. They have one of their classic Lois affair plots, but I feel like the way Peter finds out is a bit funny.
Lois, should I stop recording? Yep, you got a text. Yep, I clicked it. Yep, it's Bonnie. She's responding to you. Yep, about me. Yep, I'm reading the old texts. Yep, I should stop. Yep, but I can't. Yep, you're unhappy. Yep, who's Greg? Yep, there's Greg.
Like, obviously still not the type of joke I'm really looking for out of the show, but it's tolerable. Or when Lois says insensitive things, like when she guesses which roommate is gay and ends up calling herself woke because she got it wrong, and she's like, "No, I'm woke, it's all good." Oh, that was bad. I am killing myself. Overall, a fun episode, and I know it's controversial, but I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Now let's move on to Better Off Meg, Season 18, Episode 18. This episode is basically a less creative / less meta version of Top of the Steve from American Dad. But I still enjoyed my time with it. This episode is less an everyone hates Meg episode, and more people don't notice her episode. No one tells Meg it's skip day at school, so she rings the family to ask if they knew. They've all gone to the pier with a barrel they believe is Meg, so they're all skeptical and mad at someone who is impersonating their family member. Like, yeah, I guess it's technically a Meg is ugly joke, but it's still within reason. They seem to care about her while this joke is going on. Meg ends up going to the bowling alley, which interestingly enough becomes her regular hangout spot in many episodes. By many, it's probably like a total of 4. Still, that's some continuity right there, even if it's something stupid like Meg having a regular hangout spot. Anyway, so she doesn't steal her bowling shoes or whatever, she's forced to leave her driver's license. Someone else ends up taking her license by mistake and gets into a crash, so now everyone believes Meg is dead, which everyone does seem sad about. Although at the funeral, no one seems to know anything about her, and then Brian and Stewie didn't even care enough to really show up, they just sent holograms, which kind of feels like the opposite of where this episode was going, but whatever. Especially since at a family dinner, Brian ends up crying. Stewie never showed any real emotion though, he just mentioned that they'd be using less toilet paper. Meg takes this opportunity to move to the city and start a new life, but she quickly gets cold feet and calls Chris to help bring her back to town. However, having a dead sister has made Chris popular, so he kidnaps Meg. The next parts are pretty uneventful, so let's just say Meg escapes. Meg bursts in screaming that she's alive, like the clip that I have at the start of the video. When Meg mentions that it's Chris who did it, everyone misinterprets the situation as Chris saving Meg's life, which is on brand for Family Guy. I feel like a lot of their jokes boil down to misunderstandings, like the chicken fight. Oh, that started over a misunderstanding with a coupon. The episode ends with Meg apologising for faking her death, and then it leads down this chain of people saying, part of insert thing is faking things, like part of being a wife, part of being a husband. And then it goes on to being raccoons faking liking Peter to get food off of him. Weird joke, but it works. This episode started out really strong, but then it feels like it kind of rushes the ending. They probably should have skipped the part where Chris kidnapped Meg and just had him try to convince her to stay away. They could have still had her burst in screaming that she was alive. Like, just have her see a post of Chris being happy and she figures out why he wanted her to stay away. This is another episode that doesn't really have a B-plot. I mean, Chris getting popular is technically a B-plot, but I feel like it's inherently connected to the A-plot and quickly joins back up with the A-plot so quick that you couldn't even really call it a B-plot. The episode does okay with jokes. There's a few off ones like Joe mentioning he leveled up in Fortnite, but that's been memed so much I honestly laugh at it now.
You got in a car wreck and was burned beyond recognition, and I leveled up on Fortnite this weekend, but you probably only care about the first 2 things.
I really want to love this episode more than I do, but I think due to the ending being weird, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. It's still really strong. The ending's just kinda weird. The next episode on my list is Single White Dad, Season 21, Episode 13. Now this one I haven't really looked into the common consensus for yet, but I feel like it would be one of the more liked modern episodes, barring a joke here and there, since it does have a rather uncomfortable scene between Lois and Brian. This episode sees Peter break Lois's foot for at least the 3rd time, because I remember in the baseball episode a few seasons back, he broke both her legs. He's probably done it more times. At least here he doesn't break the leg over jealousy, instead he built a Donkey Kong house thinking it was a good idea. This leads to him having to take care of the kids, which was an episode before, but I think this one's better. He can't cook them breakfast, he couldn't make them lunch for school, instead he gave them grenades to get better lunches. Then he remembers he has a third child, which I guess preschool just doesn't exist in this episode, because wherever Peter goes, Stewie goes. People start seeing Peter do an alright job of taking care of Stewie, and they think it's adorable. So he starts lying that Lois is dead in order to get more attention. Which it doesn't start out like that, he just says, she's not with us, as in like, she didn't come with us, but people misinterpret it, which, consistency, another thing that comes from a misunderstanding. He ends up meeting a mother who is in the situation that he's lying about being in. She falls for him, and Peter being Peter doesn't pick up on this. He just hangs out with them for Stewie and free popcorn. The episode throughout had been pretty hilarious. The episode itself is pretty good, but the ending is just hilarious and has a bunch of great moments. Peter realizes Becky, alright, that's the widow's name, probably should have mentioned that before, is in love with him when she kisses him at the park. He goes home and tries to break things off. As he's about to send a text saying we can't see each other anymore, she pulls up and is like, oh, I'm here to cook dinner for you and your family. And now Lois has decided that she thinks it's been close enough to a week and she wants to get out of bed and spend time with the family and eat dinner with them. So now Peter has to keep Lois upstairs and keep Becky from finding out about Lois. This scene just has a bunch of great gags. So many things hold Peter up. The best part is, Bonnie is trying to bring Lois a meatloaf for dinner because Peter had told Lois that she couldn't eat dinner with them because they ordered from the place she hates. So now Bonnie is trying to get inside, so now Peter has to stop 3 people. Peter's solution to get rid of Bonnie is to tell Bonnie that Lois died, and Bonnie's like, oh my god, what are you doing with our washing machine? Okay, I really can't do impressions. Someone kill me now. Anyway, Peter keeps trying to get rid of her, keeps saying reasons why the washing machine won't go through, and then Bonnie's like, I'll give you $100 for it. And then Peter gets intrigued and is like, you know what, I think this'll work. Anyway, Peter ended up wasting too much time with Bonnie. Now Lois is downstairs and Becky walks in because she heard all the ruckus at the same time. Becky and Lois begin to argue over a lot of things, but after a while, they kind of take each other's side. Like Lois says, you are hot and young, you could do way better than a fat guy in his 40s. Then Becky ends up mentioning her dead husband, everyone around her yawns, and she leaves because obviously you would when people do that. I've done a pretty bad job recapping this episode, but I highly recommend it. It's hilarious. This is honestly like an 8 out of 10. Please watch it. I'm begging you to watch. It's a corny episode and definitely feels like a modern classic. It might be plagued with a couple of gross modern jokes, but it's really good. Please, it's definitely worth the watch. Before we move on to the last 2 episodes, I'm gonna be one of those YouTubers. Apparently 99.9% of you aren't subscribed. I just wanted to do it because that is such a crazy number. It's like 5,000 views compared to 700 subscribers. I don't know how many subscribers that means watched. Although YouTube Studio says it's like 35, which is crazy when you think about it. But I did rebrand my old channel into this channel, so I guess not everyone's gonna watch. Anyway, this isn't serious at all. I just thought the numbers were funny. Now, a bottle episode, Season 21, Episode 17. This is peak cinema right here. I wanted to make this the last episode on the list, but I thought I'd save the last one for more of a recent episode. Anyway, this episode sees the Griffins decide to book an Airbnb in Nantucket. They're all having a good time together. Stewie and Brian set up their B-plot, which is serviceable. Anyway, the Griffins get home, and bam, the Griffins are banned from Airbnb. Now I can't tell if it's all of Airbnb or just this specific house, since Lois can still browse Airbnb and message the host and whatnot. But the episode also kind of acts like it's the whole app, so it would have been nice to get more of a concrete explanation. Anyway, Lois messages Dottie, who is the host, to ask why they were banned from the app, and Dottie says because something was stolen. Lois is very quick to accuse the family. They're all going on about how they didn't steal anything. So Lois is like, oh yeah, everything's alright. Messages Dottie like, yeah, everyone says they didn't take anything, I think there's some misunderstanding. Lois gets a reply about it being a bottle of shampoo that was taken. Lois realizes it was her that got them banned. She took the shampoo. Lois loved this shampoo. It made her feel like she could afford nice shampoo, but a trend following from Customer of the Week is that Lois thinks she's a good person and deserves something nice, so she keeps hammering in how small the bottle is, and that it only had a tiny bit left in it. The family requests to see the bottle. When Lois presents it, they immediately comment on the thud it made on the table, and how it has a pump. Lois ends up going to see Bonnie so she can vent about it. This scene was honestly just hilarious. Bonnie mentions how she heard the family's whole conversation because her and Joe have eerily quiet dinners, and that she knows the bottle isn't that small. Lois tries to break the tension by going to get a cheese knife, which Bonnie revealed she put locks in her drawers and would need Lois to sign out which knife she took. Lois freaks out about this, and Bonnie says my favourite line of the episode, that being, "I heard the bottle had a pump," which she says she got this info from text chains because she's in a couple text chains talking about it, which I think I would have preferred that it was more consistent and she also heard that from the family's conversation, because that was brought up. The text chain joke is pretty funny, but I think I would have preferred consistency in the jokes. Anyway, Lois decides the only way to fix things is just to take the shampoo back to Dottie. When Lois returns the shampoo at a cafe, the shampoo does its audible thud again, which, consistency in the jokes, we've established I like this. Lois is like, "So now you've got the shampoo, you can remove the bad review and get me unbanned," which Dottie disagrees and says Lois only returned the shampoo because she got caught. As Lois is leaving, she starts hearing all the things people said to her, and she decides it's time to take Dottie down a peg. So she stalks Dottie to find out her interests and realises she uses DoorDash. Now this part is a little unrealistic because it kind of feels like it implies Lois stayed in Nantucket for over a week just to find out what Dottie does. And then that probably gets ramped up to a few weeks because Lois becomes a DoorDash driver and is waiting until Dottie orders something and she specifically gets the order. Lois mentions there's only one other driver, so maybe it wouldn't have taken that long for her to get an order? Still, seems a bit above and beyond. Anyway, Lois finally gets an order from Dottie and she uses this order to finally leave Dottie a bad review so that Dottie gets banned off of DoorDash, unless she removes her bad review. So Dottie caves and finally removes the bad review. Lois admits that she took the shampoo, because staying in an Airbnb makes you feel like someone you're not, apparently, and that you can afford a nice shampoo, which honestly, I think, if you just didn't go to an Airbnb, you could probably afford a nice shampoo. Lois even admits she's a secret little psycho, which is honestly a satisfying thing to hear, because you know, a common trend through these episodes is just that she thinks she's a good person. Here she's admitting that she's not a good person. I know a lot of people don't like the psycho side of Lois, but I kinda do like it, and here in this episode, when she's admitting it herself, it doesn't really feel like it's out of character if she's admitting it. Like, yeah, it's out of character compared to the original few seasons, but she picked up psycho tendencies pretty early, and this is just her admitting that it's something she is.
Also, I opened your locked closet and put on your wedding dress. I ate yogurt in it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, oh my god.
On the B-plot side of things, Stewie and Brian buy heaps of saltwater taffy expecting to sell it in Quahog. It's not a bad story, kinda wholesome, but the jokes are very non-existent and it's kinda boring, so think the local honey business, but less fun and a lot less jokes. It ends with them selling their taffy to Trump supporters, which was funny but a little unnecessary. Too political? I loved the Lois plot, and despite the boring B plot, I will give this episode a 9 out of 10. Also, I didn't know where to put this, but I've realised they've slightly changed Bonnie's design, and it's really uncanny because they've also slightly changed her voice direction. It's still the same voice actor, but like, why? Why is it different? I am going on so many random rants in this video. Also, they're unscripted, so I kinda stutter. Now we arrive at the last episode on my list, Snapple Decision, Season 22, Episode 7. Out of the 9 episodes that are out of the season so far, this is probably the best one. There are 3 good ones, 3 okay ones, and 3 bad/meh ones. Honestly not looking terrible so far. Although I say that, and the last episode to currently come out was the return of the King of Queens, which was depressing. Also, side note, I'm realising that recording this video, I'm not going to get this video out before March 6th, so there's probably going to be another episode out. Maybe it'll be better, and this video won't seem as depressing with this tangent. Okay, back to talking about Snapple Decision, because I kind of forgot about that. So, in this episode, Lois takes Meg to run a bunch of errands with her. Lois thinks she's cool and Meg is being sarcastic the whole time, which is not a terrible characterization for either of them. These do feel like parodies of sitcom tropes, just not the sitcom tropes the characters originally parodied. So right off the bat, this episode kind of feels like a modern classic because, you've got the sitcom parody edge to it. You don't have Lois being a secret little psycho self and Meg being a loner psycho. Kinda sad that the character archetypes can be boiled down to insert type psycho nowadays. It's a little creepy if you ask me. What I'm trying to say is, I like that they're not psychos in this episode. Anyway, they go to the market and Lois starts filling up her purse with mother items that she would have on her. Stuff like mini hand sanitizer, Tic Tacs, a rain bonnet. All this stuff feels like it's just going to be a throwaway joke, but it surprisingly comes back at the end of the episode, which is nice. So at the end of the errands, Lois decides to surprise Meg with some Snapple caps. Meg is like, wow, amazing, which is sarcastic, yippee. Anyway, Meg mentions that she didn't win the contest, and Lois is like, what contest? Lois pulls off her cap, immediately wins $10,000, which I guess shows Meg as being an unlucky teen girl instead of a psycho. I put so little effort into the script for this episode, despite it being the last one that I'm looking at, which makes me feel a bit stupid. Like, if I just read the script, there's not really much to say, so I'm going on a whim here. I'm not recapping this episode good. Anyway, Lois starts mentioning things that she'll do with the prize money, things she'll fix around the house, and Meg is like, no, that's so boring. Imagine what Dad would do with the money. Don't be boring. Lois caves and decides to go on a vacation with Meg. In their vacation, they are pretty dumb. They keep calling themselves the Snapple Babes, and keep flaunting their money around. So, of course, some kidnappers see them and think they're the heiresses to the Snapple fortune, which I don't know if this is a real thing and I really don't want to Google it. So they start flirting with Lois and Meg to scope out whether they're worth taking, and of course they decide they are. In a surprising twist, when they're kidnapped, Lois says, "You can do whatever you want to me if you let my daughter go." Which, it would normally be the opposite in Family Guy. It would be, let me go and you can do whatever you want to Meg. And then, the kidnappers would probably claw their eyes out because it's Meg. Like, they didn't take the obvious Family Guy joke. What the hell is this episode? Meg is being treated as a typical teenage girl. Maybe too typical, but a W is a W. Anyway, the kidnappers don't listen. It ends with them being kidnapped, but Lois ends up using all her essential mother items to defeat the kidnappers. It was like hand sanitizer to the face, Tic Tacs to make them trip, and then they used their rain bonnet as a disguise, which apparently they got the cheaper rain bonnets, because no one can tell the difference, and Lois is like, don't ask me how I know, which is pretty funny. The episode has a B-plot, which isn't terrible, but it's pretty mid. Stewie and Brian realize that they don't have a lot in common, nor are willing to compromise with each other, so they stop being friends and try to make it everyone else's problem. Eventually they come back together and realize they'd rather be toxic together than toxic apart, which isn't the best message, but I guess it's better than calling Meg a lightning rod. The best part of this B-plot was the song Brian wrote for Stewie, and only because it was silly and short. And despite it being minimal effort, it did look like he kinda put in some effort, since earlier in the episode he wrote a variation of the song which had no effort. Anyway, the episode ends with Cleveland narrating, saying that he knows his show was better than this, which is an iffy statement at best, because I don't think the Cleveland show was bad. It had great moments and characters, but it also had some pretty bad episodes. I love the Snapple Babe story, but I don't like the Stewie and Brian story, and I think this one is egregious enough that it pulls down the A-plot with it. I'm gonna say it's a 7 out of 10. So, I'm giving the A-plot the love it deserves, but I also need to put my foot down on this one and say bad B-plot. There are a bunch more modern episodes like P-Terminator that have their own unique flair that I'd love to talk about, but I want to see how this video performs first before I make this video too long and then it underperforms. So I guess if you like the idea of me discussing more episodes, maybe put down the episodes you like if you want me to talk about more. Although, if they're episodes I don't like, maybe I'll discuss them in a video on why I don't like them. Anyway, hoping to get this video out by March 8th, but it's not looking good. And with that, I've gotten my list of some of my favourite modern Family Guy episodes out of the way. Told you they'd mostly be Lois episodes. Do you agree or disagree with my choices? Do you have favourites of your own? Let me know in the comments, and with that, I'll be signing off and hoping to have another video out for you soon. Goodbye